Imagine a place where every mistake is taken, collected in a place where all of life's mistakes can be safely tucked away. No, I'm not talking about live stream fails or incognito mode. I'm talking about the void. So let's go over Elmore's darkest secret. The episode starts out enforcing that something is a little weird in Elmore, but not in a paradoxically normal way, but in a way where they probably should figure out what's going on. In a callback to a season 2 episode, The Flower, Gumball is cheering his soon-to-be girlfriend, Penny, and the rest of the cheerleaders in an effort that completely overlooks the fact that they're failing. However, unlike the last time where weather and pure ignorance played a role in it, now it's pure structure and pure ignorance playing a role in it. You know, that's romantic, watching someone from afar, idolizing them, and knowing about their every embarrassing moment in public. Wait, that came out wrong. Can I redo that?
My tail comb!
Alright, I guess they didn't explode, but you have to admit that was...
Later on that day, Gumball reflects on the multiple deaths of his schoolmates and determines that this would have had a different outcome if someone was there to help them. But who? That is when the local hippie school counselor psychedelia enthusiast Mr. Small either confirms their theories or pushes them away from it if the crazy guy believes them. I will say, if there was a dynamic that I did enjoy, it would be Gumball, Darwin, and Mr. Small centric episodes. I do like them a lot. Often because unlike Principal Brown, who has to act a certain way for it to be interesting, or Miss Simeon, where you kind of know what you're going to get almost all the time with her, Mr. Small has a few different interactions with Gumball that I do enjoy a lot. I will agree that maybe Mr. Small's yelling and ranting to two kids right here may not be the greatest thing in the world, and maybe he needs to channel all of his rage into a violent vocal release.
Like this.
However, he also hinted that he has not only lost something, but remembered what he lost because of his tinfoil hat. Janice, apparently very close to him. That was taken. Now, while it might be a little bit crazy to go into a giant conspiracy as to why Janice may have left Mr. Small, he doesn't really see it that way. In fact, this might be getting a little bit too deep into this, but isn't it a conflict of interest if your counselor is enabling the crazy theories that you might have?
You know, I kind of feel something's missing too. Something that used to be here at school, but now it's gone. Never mind. Look at this! There's no 116!
I mean, technically Locker 103 and Locker 157 is missing, but who cares about those guys? They probably didn't buy merch at alphaj.show/merch. So honestly, the world did some corrections and erased them from existence. It's quite logical. So from this point, apparently only Gumball and Darwin see a visible fold through their reality, almost as if Elmore is trying to hide something from the world. It's a neat aesthetic choice that fits in line with the philosophy of the show, bending and twisting meta into figurative or literal interpretations, in which this one is quite unique. The powerful being that erased said character from existence did leave in place all of the photos, which now look weird because there was a being that was included in a way that where taking them out should be noticed, but that never was. Sheesh! And all of you people watching Cartoon Network were more interested in space rocks?
Let's look in the yearbook! Stop, look! I mean... Stop, look! It's like someone was erased.
I do get that the manifestation of the void is that it represents the collective consciousness of society, and what they deem as a mistake to leave in the past or cancel, just with a cartoonish spin on it. The void itself, for the lack of a better word, is alive. It's constantly readjusting, and it's clear that it has a process that you don't really know what is in there unless you're unaffected by its memory erasing effect. I guess a real life analogy that can help describe the void would be colors. Imagine if the world thought about a color, let's call it sour cream, and this color was a mistake that no one should ever have to experience and should be erased from our collective imaginations. You would not be able to conceive what that color would be until you've seen it. You could not manifest that that color until it's been brought to your attention that it was taken away from you. This means that in every photo, you wouldn't even know that said color is missing because that part of your consciousness that experienced that color and knew how to process it has been removed. And you're none the wiser. They realize who the student is. It's a student from a long time ago. Now, the student was very prominent in season 1. One may say that this student dropped off the face of the earth after having a prominent speaking role in season 1. One may say that they've made an appearance in the party, and in this episode, they are nowhere to be found despite being seen in Elmore Junior High before. Alright, listen, editor, I don't know why you're putting your OC on the screen, because that's really weird. I don't know who this character is. I've seen every episode of Gumball. Clearly, I'm speaking about Molly. Duh.
Maybe if you gave us some more details about her, we could all try and remember together.
More details? More details? What kind of friends are you?
Molly is an interesting character to have existed within the void. She makes several background appearances within season 1. She's often either in class, in the cafeteria, in the gym, in the schoolyard, or sometimes in more plot-related scenes she's cheering on Gumball to forget about the kiss and the kiss, or she's speaking about having a boyfriend in the pressure, or even worshipping Gumball Oops Egg Wobble Underpants in the dress, an episode I've spoken about before. However, within season 2, she doesn't have any speaking roles, and it's almost as if she was wiped off the face of the earth, and there really hasn't been an explanation as to why.
Molly was your friend! And a girl!
You don't remember her either, do you?
No, you're right! I have absolutely no idea who she is! But now I've hit this volume, I can't really see way back down, so I'm just gonna walk away shouting and then I won't have to...
This is the greatest moment of this episode, hands down. He's bringing out his inner Nicole, who doesn't make an appearance in this episode, alongside Anais or Richard. A large part of this episode, as I said before, is carried between Gumball and Darwin, but also Mr. Small, which, speaking of, they rush into his office to tell him that at least in this aspect, he's not crazy. Mr. Small gives them protection, not in that way, and says that his 6 nipples were a big reason for it, not in that way, and they're off to find Molly. Interestingly enough, it does seem like the Void does not take into account of people thinking of the Void, even indirectly, because if so, the moment that they mentioned that Molly was missing, all of their memories should have been erased involving this incident. However, given that this fold here leaves a trail back to where it started, the universe wasn't as clean with its removal. Clearly doesn't have the makings of a varsity athlete, as it left behind a visible seam of which they will use to figure out where Molly went.
There's something left here.
Well, I don't see anything.
Look closer. Closer. Closer.
Back up, Jack.
They find a photo of Molly, claiming to have been close friends with her. I'm not saying that it's not true, but I would love to know of some of their favorite moments, because in season 1, I can tell you, there isn't much of anything to be able to suggest anything in the universe of that. Gumball and Darwin's collective friends were friends with Molly, I would believe, but that would just make them friends of a friend, which is natural. That happens to all of you who have friends, and it doesn't happen if you don't have friends, like the 84.3% of you who haven't subscribed who watch my videos. That's like the dumbest trend that I've seen YouTubers caught onto, I swear.
Do you remember Molly?
Of course I remember her, thanks to the hat.
What was she like? We've completely forgotten about her.
Well, let's see, she was boring, and, no, that's it, she was just boring.
Do you think the world thought Molly was a mistake?
Yeah, if I was the world, I'd be pretty bummed to have come up with someone as boring as Molly.
Emotional, damn it! They really nail the point home that Molly was not just a nothing, boring character, but that throughout all this time, to actually exist in Elmore, you have to do something interesting or provide value, which again serves as an interesting parallel given that Molly wasn't really in anything too interesting, like another character that we'll be seeing soon, and that there is a real life void, a law whenever writers wish to no longer use characters. You know, editor, why do you keep bringing this OC up? Tobias never had a sister. That never happened. Can you name 3 episodes where she played a role in? No. Anywho, they reached the physical seam in which represents where Molly used to live. Just like the lockers, Molly's entire home and treehouse was erased from Elmore, which has some interesting implications. Did Molly have a family? And if so, were they erased? Because, spoilers, they're only in there to save one person. We also see a great shot of their world slowly being shown to be a bit flatter than they anticipated, which is quite interesting and also confusing given that they're 2D beings and are experiencing depth, but they decide it's a good idea to enter the void regardless.
If the world decided that she was a mistake, then who are we to say?
Darwin, it wasn't very nice of you to push your brother in such a way. People are allowed...
Here lies the void, full of what appears to be TV static. A place that would become more and more prominent past season 3. In addition to having Molly, obviously, the void is also home to a lot of early designs within the production of Gumball. One can see Darwin's older design. There's a design of the school from the early reel. There's also an early design of the Wattersons' home. And then there's Rob. Yeah, Rob was in the void, and it's never acknowledged. He's on screen, he never speaks, which goes against his appearance in The Nobody, where it's shown that he's waving at Gumball and Darwin. Inconsistency aside, this is the seed of the Rob arc. While not his first episode, not even his first major villain episode, that being The Nobody, because of this small moment here, it sows the seeds of malice that spread throughout various episodes post-season 3. Honestly, The Void might be one of my favorite episodes within Rob's arc, and there are a lot of great ones, including The Future, The X, both of which I've covered on this channel. Getting back to this though, they reach Molly and notice that she's never left the treehouse.
Oh, you're okay.
We were so worried.
When we finally remembered you.
After a year.
What do you mean worried? I saw you yesterday.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like sleep, where you don't feel the hours where you spent doing this thing. You know at some point that you did, and at another point you wake up. But imagine after a year. That must be the craziest thing to experience, especially if in this instance you've also never aged? I mean, that part isn't confirmed, it's just my speculation. Also, considering that in the kids, the season 3 premiered implied that they weren't aging anymore, I would imagine Molly, it just felt like 2 frames. The first one being that you're in the treehouse in Elmore pouring tea, and then the second being that you're here and there's no recollection of why you got in here or how you've gotten in here. I guess to think about that often. It's hard to imagine, but I know there's a variation of what I speak about in Pibby. During the beginning, where they thought they were safe, they were not. They also tell Molly to her face that she's quite boring, and she kind of confirms it by speaking about collecting different pencils. And listen, look. It takes all kinds. We need the pencil and stamp and coin collectors of our society to balance out the e-celebs, the most wanted criminals, the world leaders, and funnily enough, if you were to cut the bottom 10% of people in terms of fun to like the 10% most boring people, then there would be a new 10% of people who are boring, because boring is relative. Just a little thought experiment. The rest of this episode follows the we gotta get out of here formula. They have to run and jump over things that didn't work, because if those things did work, they wouldn't be in the void.
Huh?
Here she is, kids! Meet Janice!
Janice is a van?
If this wasn't Cartoon Network, there would be leftover drugs in that van. And I'm just saying what everyone else wants to say at this moment, Susan. They get into the car without Rob, start driving without Rob, the car slows down without Rob, and with love and affection, they blast off out of the void without Rob. Again, this goes against his appearance in The Nobody, where he was seen holding on to the back of it. Honestly, it's not the biggest problem, but I do criticize the episode a little bit because there isn't really an excuse that they didn't know exactly when they were going to connect Rob being in the void and being ignored to him seeking vengeance for that fact, because these episodes are super close together.
Do you realize what we've just seen?
This changes everything.
We must tell everyone before the world tries to make us forget.
But how could we forget something like that?
What were we talking about again?
Their memory is wiped. Now, this explains partially as to why Gumball has a hard time relating to Rob's struggles later on, the other half being Gumball's self-centered nature, and Rob just being a boring character. But it should be noted that this entire experience is now wiped from the collective memories of everyone within Janice, including Molly, who at this point, she's not only forgotten about the void, but an entire year of her existence was put on pause. And now to her, she's out of the void, but most likely has to deal with the aftermath of not really belonging to Elmore anymore. It looks like the houses are still flat and Molly's house is still in the void, as well as her parents. I do wonder what happened to them though. I at least wonder that more than this one girl that this editor keeps shoving down my throat. You know, you're getting on thin ice here. I've never seen this character before. Anywho, is The Void the best episode? I'd say it's actually probably top 15, top 10 conversation, if we're weighting its importance within the show as a major factor. And I have 4 more slots for the search for the best, so if you have a suggestion, put it in the comments down below. I am trying to use your guys' suggestions to kind of guide this search for the best. But until then, Take care. Alpha out.